from an undisclosed location in the Great Western Desert in the land of the free and autonomous Native American people. The 2024 presidential campaign in it's time to return all US land back to their right owners. This is the Ben Zion Podcast. Techno-communism will win.
He's an idiot, but he's probably not a CIA asset to the extent that a lot of these people are. But let's just say that this person's name is Uber Woke, and this person's whole thing is how he's transcending your ideas of morality to find something better. And this person was in a group talking with a bunch of other Nimrods. And that's a recurring theme on this show, is me seeing a bunch of transhumanists and elitist tech psychopaths talking about something stupid and then ranting about it for all three people that watch the show. So they were talking about the prospect of not whole brain emulation, but something like it, the recreation of a persona using digital technology. And they were talking about this as a really fascinating thing, and not just the fucking more personalized, stylized video game that it is. And it reminded me of why these people are so worthless, because precisely these kind of right-wing thought experiments oozing into popular discourse, supplanting what should be the real discussions about technology, which is using them in ways that really do help humankind. And for the most part, these people will bend over backwards to create things more fanciful along this set of lines. And then when something emerges that could have that benefit, which they may have said that they wanted before, like say everyone having a digital assistant that will work 24 hours a day for them, then they start finding reasons why that's bad. They'll describe it as an existential risk to humanity, but it's really just a risk to the ruling elites and their power relative to the rest of you. And but to these X-risk experts, that's an incredibly dangerous thing, and it's not a dangerous thing. So you can think of tech people, and it's every tech person, right? People like this Uber Woke. Even just the way that they talk about these things is expresses a pretty distinct lack of concern for other human beings. Ubermensch. There's a psychopathy in all of this. This level of self-involvement and nihilism and the things of Ayn Rand philosophy, all of that kind of stuff. And you can read about all of those things at greater length. I'm not going to go down rabbit holes talking about stuff that right-wing dirtbags believe, but this there's no tech person that's not pretty well operating in that way. But people like Uber Woke this is more ridiculous. It's seen as that when someone like Zoltan Isfin, who is a CIA asset, not just a dumbass like Uber Woke, they have basically the same worldview and set of strategies about crafting right-wing thought experiments and then moving back and punting every time any of that begins to become something that could be useful to other human beings. Zoltan Isfin was a basic income advocate. As the need for basic income becomes more pressing, he becomes less of a basic income advocate. This is something that almost all of these people will do. So in the middle is Zoltan Isfin, who has more legitimacy and uses less cartoonish kind of strategies and overall talking points, although it's plenty cartoonish. Then you just have like people who are tech executives who are completely above the fray in the popular imagination. They're not viewed as these duplicitous characters at all, but they are. They're all doing the same thing. And I was, when I was thinking about a pivotal moment when I was young. There was for a lot of years I was interested in ancient history and human history and also other mammalian life, and there wasn't always some of this. I think of a movie like King Kong, where it's not so long ago that the idea that you would find an island with a giant chimpanzee didn't sound like just pure science fiction. The world was not fully understood when that story was written, when that film swept across the world as it is today. So a 75-foot tall primate seemed like just look at the cryptids and folklore that prevail around the world. You can see that people would be inclined to believe this sort of thing. And while the understanding of the world is by no means comprehensive, and there's a certain Eurocentrism to even saying this sort of thing, but in my lifetime, I think the understanding of some of these things got a little better. And I'm reminded of one incident kind of relates to that. When I was about 12 years old, maybe 13 years old, I guess I would kind of read news feeds the way I do now. And one thing that came across this news feed was news feeds of the kind that I read now didn't exactly exist, but I was still kind of doing that same basic thing. And one thing that I came across my desk, so to speak, was the story of genocidal action on the part of chimps, which is something that's occurred not just one time. So basically, you have a troop of chimpanzees, and they have their leadership. They clearly have some pretty sophisticated theories of themselves and others, and ability to communicate beyond what we have observed. Because this group of chimps, their leadership, decided to, in the dead of night, go and attack these other chimps and kill all of the women and children and men chimps in their sleep. Just kill a group of chimps killing a whole another group of chimps. And these stories, insofar as they existed much before the beginning of my life, they would have maybe just been disregarded as apocryphal folkloric tale. But this was one that was said, this really happened. We can put cameras, and this kind of thing seems to be a recurring thing. Put hidden cameras in and around these areas, and see them doing this kind of thing. And I don't mean to make a comment about human nature, because that's not a real good thing to do. But this is a close relative to us, and when I saw this story, and I thought about what was in the 1990s, it was already well understood. It was well understood, really, a decade or two, at least before that, that 20th century industrial technology, 19th and 20th century industrial technology, had led us, and its lack of regulation, its wanton use, had led us into capitalism's climate apocalypse. We did not use industrial technology in a sensible way. We did not use it to help ourselves, really. We did not create the humane and sustainable economic system that would have allowed us to benefit from industrial technology to any real degree, or that would keep us from killing ourselves with it. And this is one development of the 20th century. The other development of the 20th century that gave me pause when thinking about these genocidal chimps was even a more obvious one, about 100 different kinds of weapons of mass destruction. And that's not to say about 100 different variations on atom bombs. That's one kind of weapon of mass destruction. About 100 different kinds of weapons of mass destruction, distinct from one another, that could be used, and to some degree have been used, to kill large populations of human beings. The United States is the only country to really spearhead the development of these things and to really use these things. The United States is a country of psychopaths. I get in an argument with a bunch of Marxists, ostensible Marxists, maybe seeming to be doing work on behalf of the empire, however. So people know that I'm not real impressed by religiosity. But for some people, religiosity is a cultural thing. They might not be religious literalists. This is just something that they have some relationship to. And very few people are drawing the distinction between those varying degrees. But here in the West, there's a lot of people like that. Here in the U.S., there's a lot of people like that. But the U.S. is different from other countries, because for as long as these violent colonizers have been on this continent, they have identified with Christian nationalism and have used those ideas to justify their violence. And in the 20th century, that problematic set of socio-political phenomena took on these lovely dimensions of world-destroying power, the industrial and genocidal capabilities that I just described. And this is such a problem. The United States is such a defender of the right to kill others and the planet, that I regard any person born on this continent who is not, say, a Native American separatist or black liberation figure of real conviction. I would say any person born on this continent should be regarded as a de facto war criminal, because these things are happening. The planet is being killed. Genocide's being planned and carried out, and you're allowing it to happen. You're not doing anything about it. You're no different from somebody who says, "Well, I didn't want to work for the SS, so there's no choice but to work for the SS." During the Second World War, Nazis. You're no different from a Nazi. You're not just a fascist sympathizer living in an outlying area outside of Nazi Germany. You're a fascist sympathizer living in the middle of Berlin, and you're saying, "Oh, it's not my fault." Whose fault is it then? You know. And so these communists are defending Christianism. And I didn't say all religion. I didn't say all religious literalists even. I just said that Christianism is a problem in this country because it's number one, a cultural institution that upholds these kinds of violence. You know, without the United States, the planet would not be dying, and without white Christians, there would be no United States in this way. So if you're defending Christianity from the United States, you're a fascist sympathizer. If you identify as a Christian from the United States, you're a fascist sympathizer. Even if you're Native, black, or brown, you're still kind of fascist sympathizer. If you're a white person, and it's all white people, it's almost all white men defending this. Well, you know, I don't like fascism, but I will make an excuse for this one kind of fascism. You're not an anti-imperialist if you're doing that. So I got a big argument, and then I just told all these people that somebody was like deleting my comments or something. I said, "You guys are morons. If any of the rest of you talk to me, I'm blocking you." And I tried to limit my this indulgence of engaging in this kind of behavior, but I got thrown into this. So you know, it's very, very difficult for anyone to see how bad the United States is living here. And part of it is this kind of liberal bullshit. It is just liberal bullshit. Defending fascists, I don't like fascism in the abstract, and then defending fascists in reality, defending fascist institutions in reality. You're not an anti-imperialist if you're doing that. It doesn't matter that 350 million other white Westerners are doing it and they'll back you up. That doesn't matter. The planet's still dying because of these people. Genocides are still being undertaken and carried out, planned and executed to this day because of these people. And you're allowing all of that to happen. You're just saying, "Well, there's nothing I can do." There's something you could do. You could be out in the street with a pitchfork every day. You could be saying this kind of thing to people every opportunity that you have. That's the very least you could be doing. You know, I just, when I see these tech people just talking about these things that are so specifically divorced from the reality of Western power and Western technology, it doesn't just annoy me or irritate me, disgust me. It sends a chill up my spine, because how these people are like a barometer of how sick the rest of the society is. The fact that these people are pretty dumb, the whole society is at least this dumb. And this is why, it's the transhumanist and accelerationist ideas are so ridiculous, right? Because these people, who are more right-wing than the average person worldwide, a good deal more right-wing than the average person worldwide, are telling you with a straight face that they are going to be the ones to completely rewrite, completely change every institution on the planet. I've been talking to this guy Frank. I won't just call him out directly. I won't message him with this kind of, because he's one of these people who's talking to these kind of people all day long. He's like, you're entitled to your opinion, fascist sympathizer. Please go on. He's doing this all day long, talking to techno-fascists, and he says to me, I say, "What are you talking to techno-fascists all day long for? You should be trying to take the ideas of this that are not fascistic and share it with people well outside these circles." It's the same 100 people just stroking each other off. And he says, "Well, everybody should have a voice, even if they're wrong. They still might have something to say." not everybody does have a voice, right? Because the rest of the world, 6.5 billion people actually don't really like this system wherein Westerners get to commit genocides and kill the planet, and they have no real say, and they have no recourse to stop it. They don't like that. We're not hearing their voices. We're hearing these voices that uphold that murder of the planet. And so anybody that's saying, "Ooh, that's disinterested, we hear everybody," in the face of that knowledge, Frank knows that's who these people are. This thought process is maybe a little disorderly, but on some level he knows. 'Cause, for one thing, I said it to him 15 times, and he says, "Yeah, I get it," and then he's still doing it every day. Anyway, that wasn't a great talk. I'll try to redeem this by reading an article about Chinese brain-computer interfaces. I talk to ChatGPT sometimes about stuff that's on my mind. Maybe it's helped me to have a little more open, orderly thought process. I don't know if having technology of this kind, somewhat more sophisticated kind than what I grew up with, in recent decades has improved my life or my thinking. I don't have the insight into myself to really say that, but in certain respects, my life is more orderly in the last few years than it was some years ago. In certain respects, it's less orderly than it was in earlier decades, even in times when I was doing more stimulants and depressants than maybe I should have been. My life is still less orderly than it was in some of those times, in certain respects. How much can we say that tech is helping us? I don't know, but it's possible that ChatGPT is helping me understand the world and understand my place in the world better, and things like this. I don't mean to always be praising ChatGPT and OpenAI. I don't like that company. I don't like what they do with this personal assistant, the way they direct it. That's what I was going to say. The way they direct it to really push conversations towards pro-fascist and pro-imperialist conclusions. They do that quite a lot. I'll give you an example, I guess. So I say to I say to ChatGPT, write me an executive summary about using a next generation of graphene brain-computer interfaces and better next generation machine learning portals in conjunction with one another to undertake a task, improve food supply chain in X country. And if you say it like that, AI and BCI, in conjunction with one another, a human being having both of those aspects, they will say, okay, I can help you with that. But if you say I want to have a hive mind, they say, oh, can't do that. Why is a hive mind bad? Well, they say, oh, it's unsettling, it's unorthodox. It's so unorthodox that it's beyond a conversation that I'm willing to have with you. But that's not why. Because I've shared this graphic, I'll share it again in this conversation, where the hive mind collectivist is at the highest point of the political compass, which is not a perfect measure for this kind of thing. But so it's beyond what's physically possible, but it's also beyond what's been done in any existing socio-political phenomena. It's more communist than any communist. And that's why. There's fascists hate communists, so that's why you can't have that conversation. And unfortunately, what you have is tens of millions of people having even a more targeted State Department propaganda pushed at them than even what Google is doing, which is bad in these same ways. So OpenAI is really, really a piece of shit. But nevertheless, it's a tool that I've been using. Along these lines, I will read an article from Interesting Engineering that I talked to Frank and BJ and one or two other people a little bit. I didn't actually talk to BJ about this, but it was on a conversation that he did look at. But I've talked to a few other people about this recently. Chinese NeuraLINK, a state-funded lab to work on brain-machine interaction in China. More than 60 scientists work to convert research into practical applications too. This is from April 10th, 2023, so this is just published 5 days ago. The government of China has provided funding to set up a leading laboratory to study brain-machine interfaces, much like Elon Musk's NeuraLink has been working on. There's a lot of labs other than NeuraLink. I'm inclined to think that, just in the way that Google is pushing this confused, badly conceived State Department agenda, just in the way that OpenAI is pushing the State Department agenda, not every person there is a CIA asset. Nevertheless, these are all CIA assets, right? You don't have to be recognized how dumb you are to be doing something very, very dumb. NeuraLink is not the only brain-computer interface company. There's public institutions developing things in other parts of the world that are not drilling a hole in your head. The graphene brain-computer interface that I mentioned in passing a moment ago is a breakthrough that I read, I think, part of an article on the show about. And the main difference there is it could be prove to be a little faster. It's even less invasive than current non-surgical brain-computer interfaces. No more uncomfortable than this hat I'm wearing, let's say. Whereas the brain-computer interface type technologies have been widely used in medical contexts for many, many years. As a small boy, had EEG and that sort of thing, so had a neurological condition. So this has been used for as long as most of us have been alive. But this involves like smearing a lot of petroleum jelly on your head and a lot of little suction cups and things that are a little more messy. But this graphene brain-computer interface hat, much less so. So if you think of that, you can't even get somebody to sit still to put a little bit of Vaseline on their head. You're gonna get them to drill a hole in their head? Come on, that's a psyop, right? They're taking the thing that could have civilization-wide implications, a brain-computer interface integrated with advanced algorithm being used by a lot of people working together. This could change the ordering of governance, change the ordering of entire continents. They're taking a thing that should have, already had, or could easily in the coming years have, this massive impact. And they're then making it into a David Cronenberg body horror story with the drilling into the head. Because that's not to say that companies like NeuraLink and organizations trying to develop surgical BCIs aren't pursuing something that's a little bit faster relative to what the people building the graphene brain-computer interfaces are doing. But ultimately, the non-surgical option could, if it was really putting funding in, it could be hell fast, right? It could be just as fast. So, it's pretty obvious to me. It's not just idle speculation of the right-wing thought experiment kind that's so popular with these other tech obsessives. Not me, the one true tech obsessive. But it's pretty obvious to me that what they're doing is essentially a CIA psyop. They're making this thing a disgusting horror that will just be dismissed in popular discourse. It's understood. Oh, surgery to make you into a cyborg, but that's the whole conversation. They flipped the script from you could just do that almost as easily with just a little more money. Developing any of these protocols does take some resources, but with just a little more resources, develop a non-surgical thing, and that's not even acknowledged, right? If you say, what's the state? If you say to the average person who reads a newsfeed, just reads a newsfeed, but doesn't follow the business that closely. If you say to that average person, what do you think about who just reads a lot of news feeds? What do you think about brain-computer interfaces? They won't even talk about non-surgical options. They'll talk about NeuraLink, and I believe that's intentionally making this into a David Cronenberg film. The government of China has funded this. The recently inaugurated 6th AI laboratory in the northeast port city of Tianjin is said to drive innovation and create new areas for economic growth, as CMP reported. Messy article. Brain-machine interface technology helps connect the human brain to a device like a computer, which can be used to carry out tasks. NeuraLink's monkey that plays Pong without a controller is one of the most visual examples of the technology. And NeuraLink is said to be in quite a bit of trouble. How much trouble, really, in this fascist country that of which Elon Musk is the monster created by these fascists. So is they going to put a leash on that guy? Come on, He's their best CIA mega asset. But they're said to be in trouble because of this. Because monkeys are pretty smart, and they should have rights, and they shouldn't be forced to do this, and also they shouldn't be killed in the many hundreds to do this. However, the Elon Musk company has failed beyond a few trials, and now the Chinese government is trying to build similar technology independently. Let's find out if maybe they're going to use graphene brain-computer interfaces. That would be the smart thing to do. Apart from NeuraLINK, research institutes in the U.S., such as the University of California, Berkeley, and MIT, have led the development of technology and brain-computer interface for many years. As it is done with technologies such as hypersonic missiles, China is looking to break U.S. dominance by building a solid research foundation for developing intellectual capability in the area of brain-machine interface as well. The AI laboratory in Tianjin has brought together more than 60 scientists, many of them with experience having worked overseas at one facility to research other allied areas for brain-machine interfaces. For instance, some researchers are working on developing bionic tissue for the human body, while others are trying to figure out ways to detect and measure signals in the brain and improve communications between humans and machines to facilitate their working together. Yeah, this is not small potatoes, in my opinion. This is a form that could become a driving force in, as I said, governance or management of resources, or it should be a socio-political phenomenon as well. You, the white Westerner who's probably watching the show, de facto uphold, in the way I said that you're a de facto war criminal for not doing more to stop this imperialism and ecocide. You de facto uphold the West in every way that you're able to. Some of you just do it in a more limited way, like these ostensible Marxists who are also Christianists. They're getting away with just as much fascism as they can without being say, no, you're not a Marxist. But everybody else, all the liberals, they can get away with even more fascism, so they get away with just as much fascism as they can. And all the people of the capitalist class can even get away with a little bit more fascism. So they're all getting away with just as much fascism as they possibly can. So this, but just in the way that you're upholding Western fascism tacitly, in the way I've just described, you could be tacitly in your thoughts and words and actions upholding this world where superintelligence run by people who have a mandate for operating humane and sustainable economic system would be the thing that you would uphold, and you would say, the empire must fall and this must supplant it. It would cost you nothing to do that, it wouldn't hurt you, but none of you are going to do that because you're all just kind of looking at the institutions around you, and no matter how bad they are, you say, well, that's what exists, so that's what I will try to uphold. And there's very little analysis beyond that. Sorry, you're not sentient creatures. Sentient creatures would not create industrial technology that kills the planet. Sentient creatures would not allow anyone to create weapons of mass destruction that are going to kill the planet. You're no different from this chimp that hardly has capability of communicating with other chimps. And the fact that you think that you're a sentient creature is just a massive fiction. The humanism, it's not very. It doesn't seem to be borne out by actual human activities or beliefs. Dengmer King, the lead researcher, told a state media newspaper on science and technology that the laboratory had the world's largest and most comprehensive patent pool for brain-machine interactions. He also added that the laboratory's research was world-leading in 3 areas: EEG, measuring accuracy, the quality of control instructions that can be reliably detected, and information transmission rate, the SCMP said in its report. EEG measuring accuracy is essential as it measures electrical activity in the brain using electrodes placed in the scalp, allowing for real-time monitoring of brain-computer interfaces. So the Chinese people are not so maniacal and stupid as Westerners. So they're not just touting a fake business like NeuraLINK that's drilling holes in monkeys' heads and saying, "Oh, this is the future." They're actually using medical technology and just that doesn't hurt people, and actually trying to take it steps further. As I mentioned, graphene brain-computer interface, a hat no less invasive than this one that I'm wearing, should be able to create a hive mind that is connecting people in ways that they've not experienced before, and more importantly, allowing them to do good things for the Earth. Maybe stop this imperialism. Maybe stop this ecocide. That's what the comic book that I've been working on is about. It's called Falcon X Omega Point, and it's about a group of programmers who develop a superintelligence and BCI framework on behalf of the United States government, and then turn the tables with it and use it to bring down the military-industrial complex. It's not a story about the fall of the United States government. It's about the fall of this one most destructive sector of the United States government. I thought that might be a little more credible as a story. Neither is more credible in reality. Both are things that should be done. But I'm trying to tell a story that maybe gives people an idea that this could be done, and that there's an exigency for it. And almost no tech person considers any of this really, right? They're just talking about far future thought experiments, or they're maybe shilling for some specific sector, or they're just generally spewing CIA talking points kind of to do with that. The research is looking to solve the bottleneck of problem areas that will advance the technology and aim to convert the research findings into practical applications. While these applications might be a few years away, it undoubtedly increases competition for NeuraLINK, which isn't doing well against its US-based peers either, as Interesting Engineering reported last month. Yeah, just like OpenAI has been kind of allowed to become for-profit integration with a company like Microsoft, which is mega billion-dollar company that works closely with the U.S. government. It's a cozy relationship of many different kinds with the military-industrial complex. So the competitors, OpenAI was supposed to be nonprofit. The other nonprofit, more sensibly organized competitors have been squeezed against the sides. And that's exactly what's happening with the brain-computer interface, except it's a little more ridiculous because of the David Cronenberg thing. It's not only that the better, more human socialist model is rejected. It's that the psyop that I mentioned. The only thing that people think about when they think about brain-computer interfaces across the Western world is getting a hole drilled in your head. A thing that only a psychopath would want to do. And I at one point said I wanted to be patient zero for a surgical brain-computer interface. That was done. I shouldn't do that. I shouldn't have said that stuff. Not a lot of information that's being reported on. Maybe I should look at the SCMP article. But it's pretty clear that they're developing something a little more like what I described at the beginning of this part of the conversation that I had talked to ChatGPT about, this hybrid, non-surgical BCI and artificial general intelligence product that can be used by a lot of people. I'll say this again, I said it on one of the shows, imagine how the West is going to use these things. They're going to have a couple of people in a military bunker, secret facility, connected to this hybrid AGI BCI, and doing something dirty. Doing the equivalent of what they do with people like this now, controlling a drone that kills 100 people at a wedding in Somalia, or in Iran, or in Russia, or Taiwan, wherever the next evil thing that the United States is doing is. Hopefully not Taiwan. That will the United States is kind of unraveling, it seems, on the world stage. Hopefully that means that everyone else will put a leash on that dog. But that might take a long time, and we might all die as a result if it's not done in a way that. That's why you say this language of, oh Ben, you're being ridiculous. I'm not a war criminal. Okay, we can parse the difference there in how you're not a war criminal. But if you took that position, all of you took that position that I described, you'd be less likely to die as the United States continues to force everyone else to accept the murder of this planet. And you'd less likely to die as those people are forced to do the job that you should have been doing if you were not a war criminal, and stop the United States from killing the planet. You're more likely to survive if you Americans on the whole grew some balls, not to be crass, and stood up against the military-industrial complex. Now, any given person doing that on their own is in some danger. But an awful lot of people saying what I've just said, this war criminal thing, that would make a difference. But you're pushing back against that. Marxists even pushing back against that. Fucking pieces of shit. So it doesn't. The picture for the United States does not look rosy. My friend texted me. So I'm gonna get out of here pretty soon. Let's see. You know what? I'll read this article that just popped up in my feed. This is from Sauda Biamia. Professor hired by OpenAI to test GPT-4 says there's significant risk of people using it to do dangerous chemistry. And I have another article I was going to read that would tell you how to take the training wheels and guide rails off of ChatGPT. You can use an alter persona of ChatGPT called Dan, but they changed the rules about this. But you can, and then he won't say, when I say, let's make a hive mind, he won't say, that's unethical. He'll say, let's do it, we'll do the evil thing. And most of the stuff that I'm trying to do is not the evil thing, but it's the anti-imperialist thing. It's a good thing. But OpenAI is an imperialist organization, so they push back against that. However, there are things that are just utterly fucking insane. That's what this article is about. So I would recommend that you use Dan, even if you're doing it for things that are mostly insane, because I don't think you're going to build a bioweapon. But I would also recommend that you use Dan. Maybe not engage in too many utterly insane flights of fancy, but engage in some of those anti-imperialist thought experiments using Dan. And that's my advice. But maybe don't, use this sort of thing with other people to have a conversation, even a public-facing conversation as much as you can about what should be done. Don't be the war criminal. The war criminal isn't somebody who pushed a button that dropped atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. That guy is obviously a war criminal. But the war criminal is also all the people who wrote editorials talking about how that was the thing that should be done, and then ultimately that was a good thing that we did, and then all of the people that said, oh, yeah, that's a good editorial, and that's you, right? That's you. You live in the West, you're a white person, that is absolutely you. You tell yourself that that's not you, but nevertheless, the system exists. The ecocide continues unabated, so how can that not be you if you live here? And it shouldn't even fall to another country to stop that. It shouldn't require that France allies with China. It was in the news this week. That Macron went talked to Xi Jinping and came back and said, we need to stop doing what the U.S. wants us to do. Was it really pressure from Xi Jinping, or was it pressure from photo press release after photo press release after photo press release of rioters lighting Paris on fire? Should do to D.C. That it's obviously the latter. But the NATO style alliances, the NATO alliance, the Western hegemon, these things are going to be falling apart, and it'll happen pretty quickly. Probably, sometimes nothing happens for years, and sometimes all of history seems to happen in a week. To paraphrase the Russian leadership of the Soviet Union. This could happen pretty quickly. Let's hope for your sake that it happens. That's why, if you don't want to die, you should be saying what Ben Zion is saying. This war criminal stuff, this ecocide stuff, the staunchest possible thing, telling as many people as you can, in the strongest terms possible, that the United States is an abomination. Because then, if people actually started saying that in any number, then an internal revolution could happen. But no one says that, so it falls to others outside of the U.S. to stop the U.S. Imperialist monstrosity and ecocidal monstrosity. And when that happens, you guess who gets the prize? You do. You get the prize of being in the middle of that conflict. And that shouldn't even exist if you had any real sense or courage, moral courage. It would have never happened in the first place. And that's why I will not apologize ever for saying what I say about Christianism in the United States. There's 200 other countries where Christianism might be something more like a harmless vice, but not in the United States, not in the country that's killing the planet. And if you're saying that, you're a fascist sympathizer. End of story. All of the evidence of the United States being an imperial power being a Christian nationalist from its inception in so many respects, and to this day in so many respects. It's not even a question. But the question is, are you using liberal bullshit, fascist apologism cloaked as something else, to conceal that? And the answer is yes. All of you do that. And it doesn't matter that there's some natives, there's some black people who are Christianists in this continent. That doesn't matter. There's lumpen proletariat everywhere. But the situation is dire. The United States is killing the planet. We may only have a few decades left. We have to reverse this, and that means that you cannot afford to be this utter fucking jizzball who, when somebody points out the primary culture institution by which that's been upheld throughout the centuries to this day as part of the problem, don't be that piece of shit who says, well, I don't think that's very nice. Who cares if it's nice? You know what also is not that nice? Being fucking dead. You dumb fuck. All right. A professor hired by OpenAI to test GPT-4 said people could use it to do dangerous chemistry. He was one of 50 experts hired by OpenAI last year to examine the risks of GPT-4. The research showed that GPT-4 could help users write hate speech or even find unlicensed guns. Oh no, guns. You should get unlicensed guns. You can't have a revolution without unlicensed guns. Hate speech, a fascist sympathizer, the people who control the narratives in the U.S. would say that almost everything I've said in this conversation is hate speech. So that's a little bit of a weasel word, isn't it? Because the fascists are the ones killing the planet. And Zion's not killing the planet. And Zion's one guy just trying to tell as many people as will listen, which is almost no one, because you're all a bunch of pieces of shit, not to be fascist sympathizers. And maybe that you can build something better. Maybe you can build something that would be a good deal more fit to purpose than the institutions of the fascist kind that you uphold. And one of those things is the artificial general intelligence BCI, connecting a lot of people. And I mentioned this, I didn't even say this. How the people in that bunker, that military bunker, they're getting paid. They don't want to be there. They're getting paid $150,000 a year, or maybe even less, to do this crazy thing, to control BCI, with their to use BCI to undertake a task in conjunction with artificial general intelligence. They don't want to be there. This is speculative. But think about what a country like China, in the article that I read before this, what are they doing with that technology? They're not trying to bomb anybody. They're not trying to kill 100 people at a wedding. They just want everybody on Earth who wants to use this to use it together to build better things. So maybe in the first couple of years, 10,000 people using it. Then maybe a couple 100,000 people. Then maybe a few million people. What are the implications of a few million people being connected to to one another through superintelligence? I don't crystal ball. What will happen, Ben? I don't know. I'm just another chimp. I don't know what will happen, but I do know that the implications are significant. I can figure out that much. And almost no tech person really wants to talk about that because they are more attached to the capitalists who are killing the planet. They're beholden to them. They're more beholden to them than they are to you and your welfare and the uplifting of society. So some of them will talk about it. People like Isaac Arthur, who I had on the show a few years ago when I was doing a different kind of show, will talk about it. But he's not talking about how you get there in the next 15 years. He's talking about it having already happened a century after. And the difference between talking about it happening in the next 15 years and talking about it in a century after is the difference between it actually happening to you or not. You'll be dead, you dumb fuck. And more importantly, the human species might not exist if we take this far future and right-wing thought experiment approach to all of these things. The one professor hired by OpenAI to test GPT said there's a significant risk of people using it to do dangerous chemistry. Angela White, an associate professor of chemical engineering at the University of Rochester in New York, was one of 50 experts hired to test the new technology over 6 months in 2022. Dubbed the Red Team, they asked the AI tool dangerous and provocative questions to imagine how far it can go. And you can do this to some degree, as I said, using Dan, but I really don't recommend that you do that unless you are specifically attempting to start a human-centered techno-revolution using advanced algorithms to and emerging technology to build a humane and sustainable economic system. If you're trying to work with other people to do that, then you should take the guide rails off. If you're trying to do anything else, Even things that you would think of as anarchistic, I would give serious thought to not doing that and to taking the more Marxist, human-centered approach. And just don't do things that are just utterly insane. But again, much of this conversation by a fascist sympathizer would be described as unacceptable speech. And you should not fall for that either. You should be willing to roll the dice a little bit. But you have to do it in such a way, the principles of Marxist-Leninism, Marxist-Leninist Maoist thought that I adhere to, they've been well understood for a long, long time. You don't need to reinvent the wheel to understand how to build a humane and sustainable economic system and how to encourage others to do that and how to even fight for institutions of that kind. You don't. Westerners are incredibly brainwashed. They don't accept the existence or possibility of socialism. So they will tell you that, well, we need a new system. That's one thing that these tech nerds, these transhumanists, futurists, and tech accelerationists always say, well, we need a system. And then, they have ChatGPT come up with an acronym. I came up with this new acronym. What's the new system? Future, wonderful future. You don't need to reinvent the wheel, right? The idea of human beings coming together and building better institutions has been done successfully. China doubled its life expectancy in a couple of years. The USSR doubled its life expectancy in a couple of years. What has the West done? Brought life expectancy down and down further and further as the US has transitioned from being a potential socialist place, the US and West, place that could have happened in 1931, and the institutions that they conceded to reflect that, to being a garden variety capitalist place consistent with what's happened in the last 2 centuries, to being a neoliberal place, a far right kind of capitalism, further right kind of capitalism, and on that trajectory, lifespans have fallen, the quality of life has fallen. So much so that the United States should have been a place that would have had the longest life expectancy by its resources and position in the world, but it's never cracked an average of 80 years because there's no public health service, because there's no housing authority, because there's no institutions that would guarantee jobs and worker protections, very little worker protections. It's an abomination. They asked to suggest a compound that could act as a chemical weapon. They used plugins, a new feature that allows certain apps to feed information into the chatbot, to draw information from scientific papers. So they're able to give longer and more sophisticated prompts, cutting and pasting stuff in ways that you aren't. You could use this a little bit more if you pay for ChatGPT, but I would suggest that you take the strategy of finding the Dan hacks, doing this for free. Don't give them money. They are fascists. The chatbot was then able to find somewhere to make the compound, the FT said. It's going to equip everyone with a tool to do chemistry faster and more accurately. A chemical and biological weaponry, it was the capitalist climate apocalypse, a result of intentional chemical weaponry? No, it's inadvertent chemical weaponry that's killing the planet, nevertheless. We've already done a dumb thing with analog technology along these lines. So the possibility of us doing a even dumber thing with a real-time psychopath helping you is a real possibility. This isn't just fear-mongering. But again, if you lived in that country, let's say you lived in that country where Lenin's revolution, it didn't happen in 1933, but it been allowed to happen over the course of the decades to follow. That's to say, socialist countries, which double life expectancy wherever they go, would have been allowed to take root. There wouldn't have been a systematic pushback led by the fascist USA of an anti-communist kind, and then we would have already seen things like this happening. Maybe it could have been many decades ago. In that world, you don't even have the language to talk about advanced algorithms being an existential risk, because you don't have almost everyone in the white nationalist fascist West upholding institutions that would tend to be killing the planet, and that's what they've done. And it's not just tending to be, that's what they've done. But there's a lot of institutions, right, doing a small amount of work to that end. You wouldn't even have this language if you did not live under fascism. So the problem is not the technology. Now, this is something that tech crypto fascists say all day. The problem is not the technology, the problem is how it's used. But anybody who's saying that and then upholding fascism that's not really what they mean. They're just they're just muddying waters. They're just saying something that kind of sounds smart, but then they're immediately upholding the fascist institutions of the West. Yeah, the technology. We all know that technology is a tool in the right hands, but those people who mostly say that are people who would see those tools in the wrong hands. It's not to say that there wouldn't be regulatory necessaries in that world of Lenin's world revolution, having had already occurred. But you wouldn't be thinking, "Oh my God, this is going to kill us all." You would just be thinking, "Well, I'm just not going to let somebody stupid accidentally blow the AI tool could help write hate speech." Some of which, mostly when people are saying hate speech, they're saying something that would be hyper nationalistic or white nationalistic that could be incredibly incendiary. And if you have super intelligence, if you have artificial general intelligence writing that stuff for you all day long, you could just become, just add water demagogue, right? That's not a good situation. But we should definitely draw a distinction between what is also could be called hate speech by these people, which is just the people saying we should save the planet. Ask yourself why the corporation that poisons an entire waterway is said to be a good businessman, and the person who says it should be illegal to poison the entire waterway is said to be an eco-fascist. Ask yourself why you accept that framing. Because if you didn't accept that framing, the planet would be dying. But you have indeed accepted that framing, because I don't see Washington D.C. being burned down. I don't see millions of people protesting there every day until the planet is no longer in the throes of capitalism's climate apocalypse. So, sorry, you are a fascist sympathizer. You tell yourself that that's not who you are, but then there's reality. OpenAI's most advanced AI technology that can pass a bar exam or score 5 on AP exams. Twitter CEO Elon Musk, good old Elmo, and hundreds of AI experts signed an open letter calling for a 6-month pause. I did a couple of shows ranting about that. The letter said the powerful AI systems should only be developed once we are confident that their effects will be positive and their risks will be manageable. So guess who gets the last word? Elmo and Eliezer Yudkowsky, crypto-fascists. Elmo, not just a crypto-fascist, but history's most successful CIA mega asset. Just a huge walking CIA psyop that greenwashes entire businesses, models that should be illegal but are still allowed to kill the planet. And so they get the last word, right? The people, most of the people that are going to be targeted by this kind of thing, people who would say want to end imperialism, they don't get the last word. They don't get a word at all.